Be here with Bob Sansevere, the writer for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, best known for his commentary on football, but also something of a basketball expert. Bob, of course, predicted Seton Hall would make it to the finals, and I said I was so sure that they wouldn't make it that we'd have them on Sports Friday if they did.
Yeah, let's back up on it a second. You're not pleased that I'm here. It's just that you lost a bet. That's the only reason I'm here.
That's honesty in journalism.
That's right.
And that's what we've come to expect from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune.
I don't understand this. We invite the guy onto our set. We welcome him here. We give him all the benefits of a Sports Friday guest. He immediately turns on.
Just setting the record straight. I'm very pleased to be here. I want to tell you, this is I love the set because I'm flashing back. It reminds me of an old apartment I had. I'm sure you've had a few people who've had that, but I like this. It's cozy.
Well, and we live here when we're not doing the show, so.
When you're watching it on TV, it looks like it's somebody's living room you just walked into. It's great.
Well, that's the way we intend it, nice and cozy. Now, do you have any thoughts about your future as a newspaper guy?
I don't think it's going to be that big.
If you were to leave the newspaper business today, what do you think people would say about you?
Just the guy who got out when it was time.
Well, Bob, as a youngster, you grew up in New Jersey, but I know that you followed sports and news all around the country. What were your early impressions of Lee Harvey Oswald?
My idol when I was a kid.
Is that right?
I figured anybody who can make a living doing what he was doing without knowing anything about sports, he's my kind of guy.
Bob, I understand that when you were a kid, still in fact in junior high school, there was a guy who lived down the street from you who kind of took an interest in you and nurtured your career as a journalist. Can you tell us a little about him?
Real bad situation if he came here. I don't think the guy should have been allowed to come here, and he wasn't. Because he's a convicted rapist.
So you wouldn't have any particular role model?
If you look around the country, you won't find many, if any, people who, like Sid, that type of journalist. I looked at your notes before. He is an egomaniac, and I'll tell you, he's arrogant and he's abrasive, and he may get a copy of this. I'm not going to say anything else.
What kind of behavior can get you fired at the Star-Tribune?
Probably if I sat here and ripped Sid.
Well, Bob, now you've covered some unusual stories. I know you covered that Native American gay football league in North Dakota, and I believe you had an interesting comment on that.
There was a running back the Giants had drafted years ago, and to give you an idea how smart he was, he flunked out of Oklahoma. And he wound up going to a Central State, Oklahoma, and one of the linemen probably summed him up best when he said, here's a guy that he'd be great if we could put arrows on the butts of all the linemen.
Oh, God, I hope he doesn't give us that boring old story about the high school coach who wanted to hit him.
I was covering a high school event years ago when I was, like 10 years ago, and a high school coach, not only did he threaten, see, people, when they threaten to kill you, it's one thing, but when they come after you and start swinging, that's another thing. That's probably the time I was most fearful for my life. He had to be restrained by a few people.
Bob, as an investigative reporter, you've covered many things outside of football. Could you tell us a little bit about your achievements in uncovering the Jessica Hahn affair?
Whenever I read my own stuff, I'm amazed at the ability I have to get to the bottom of things.
We hear a lot about the intelligent sports writer in today's media market. Could you tell us just what is your IQ?
I think it's .0653 or 4. I was just looking that up yesterday, as a matter of fact.
I suppose now we're going to hear for the 1 millionth time how he picked Harvard to win the hockey tournament.
I don't follow hockey that closely. I'm the first one to admit that, even though I did pick Harvard to win the NCAA hockey after having seen 2 college hockey games in my life.
How do you feel about your readers?
Basically how stupid some of them are, because they're just such bobos.
What do you suppose that your sources, the people you're on an intimate basis with, how do they describe you?
Oh, I'm sure they rip me to shreds. I mean, even the ones I get along with and like and have a good rapport with, I'm sure that they rip me.
Any particular story or column stand out as something you're most proud of?
Something I'm most proud of. There's probably, I enjoy doing feature stories because you take some time to work on them.
Well, one thing I know for sure, that wretched piece he wrote on Lawrence Taylor was one of the worst pieces of drivel I've ever read in a newspaper.
Actually, one story I really enjoyed was Lawrence Taylor's rookie year. I spent a lot of time with him and talking to people that he knew, and what's interesting now in retrospect, the way he's changed. I mean, he was the greatest kid in the world coming out of college, and now his whole view of life has been skewed. I think living in New York has done it, and just the media out there has done it, but he's done it to himself too.
What would you say is your single biggest difficulty in writing a good story?
Constipation, at times.
We hear a lot of talk about Huffman making a comeback. Do you think they could find a defensive lineman that he could dominate?
Well, we'd probably have to dig up Mamie Eisenhower to do that, and I don't like getting my hands dirty.
Well, Bob, in the National Football League, you're certainly around a lot of gorgeous cheerleaders all the time, and being a real man like you are, I was wondering if you could tell us your dating preferences on the NFL circuit.
I'd probably opt for the barnyard animal.
Any one in particular?
I'm not really that particular when it comes to barnyard animals. Probably a smaller one so I could be the dominant. What did Floyd Peters say when you asked him that question?
Same thing.
He mentioned you, but
I told him never to talk about that.
Bob, a lot of kids out here grow up dreaming about being a big-time metropolitan journalist. Frankly, you are their role model. Can you tell them when you finally get to cover that big story, the Super Bowl, what do you like to wear?
I'd probably go for the low-cut sequin. I think it shows off, it's kind of nice and breezy. Though you can't wear it anywhere to any event.
What about the Bob Sansevere at leisure? What do you like to do after a hard day at work?
Jerk.
Well, now, Bob, you've covered the National Football League for a number of years. You've been a writer. You've experienced that. I know you're known as a Renaissance man. What do you think your next endeavor will be?
A great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, the A&P back in New Jersey.
Well, we really want to thank you for coming by today, for your candid and, quite frankly, often shocking answers. It was a pleasure.
We do appreciate it, and we hope that when you get back to the Star and Tribune, you will say hello to Sid for us.
And maybe goodbye, too, based on what you said about him.
Well, the pleasure was all yours.
Thank you.